Welcome to Money on Tap. Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters, where we bring out the professionals' experience and some fun in what we call three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. That's what we do on this show. We look at all sides of the issues, and we bring a fully independent planning perspective to the table. Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Folks, it is great to have you aboard today. My name's Seth Crossman, and I'm joined here once again with Ben Brayshon, Dan Mickelon. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing great, Seth. I'm doing really well. How about you, Dan?
I'm doing very well as well. And we got a nice spring day going on here. 60 degrees in February. Gotta love that.
I know. Doesn't happen all the time in New England, that's for sure.
It doesn't happen when I'm there, that's for sure. Minus 20.
Well, it's just because you're so cold-hearted.
Jeez.
It feels like
try to go skiing, and I'm just like, nope, not interested.
Well, it was nice having you out here, though, a couple weeks ago. That was good.
Yeah, it was awesome. We had a great time, and it was, and we're going to have a lot of fun today, as a matter of fact. And I'm not going to get into our weather over here. It's just Portland. It does what it does all the time. And but we are going to be getting into today more. We're going to get into more on your pension, building that pension. We've discussed so many parts of building your pension, but we've got this thing over here that we want to talk about today, which is this tax-free pension or a pension plus, because there's a lot that can be added or layered into creating that income for yourself, that reliable, that durable, that dependable kind of income for yourself in retirement, but also layering in some other things to protect and add benefits for the unforeseen. What could that unforeseen piece be? Well, your guess is as good as mine, but it's going to be a little bit on insurance. That's another layer in there, folks, for you that you never saw it coming. And believe it or not, it's an exciting topic for us to be talking about today. I can't wait to be doing this with you guys.
Yeah, I think the thing about, the pension plus concept and trying to really build, it's all about income in retirement. When everyone breaks down their assets, we always talk about how, ING used to run those commercials where the number was just kind of running over someone's head. And like, what's your number? What's your number? And it's all about net worth and how much you've got and everything. But when people get to retirement, it has nothing to do with how much you got and how much you can get in income. It's all about income. It's an income solve day in, day out for everybody. And honestly, the lower that number is that you can still solve the same income, that means you can enjoy more of life today, while you're working and, building assets and so forth. And it takes the worry out. So that planning piece, earlier the better. How many people walk through the door and say, hey, I'm getting ready to retire tomorrow? Well, that's great. We can help you. I just wish they had called 5 or 10 years earlier sometimes, because sometimes we could have amplified it even more. And, the sooner you get engaged in something like this, we never talk about how we coulda, shoulda, woulda, conversation. It's never helpful. But, there's times when that only benefits you to get engaged sooner.
Yeah, you kind of wonder what opportunities in life these people probably passed on out of fear of spending or fear of the unknown, when if they'd taken the time to have a consultation and really get up to date on projecting what retirement income looks like, they may have freed themselves up to do a lot of things in the meantime.
Oh, that's a great point. That's really where the crux of life is, right? Where everybody's trying to balance what's future going to look like and what can I enjoy today. And it's not that we're saying, hey, go be a spendthrift and you're going to be fine and don't worry about it. It's just saying, just understand the guardrails, understand the parameters, that get a really good grip on what you need to be doing. If you're doing way more than enough, well, then maybe you can go do a trip with your family. Or I was able to travel last year a little bit and do stuff. It's like, but it's not all about how much you make, but it is about how much income you can achieve in retirement to make sure that you're cared for and the things you want to do can be accomplished.
Income. Just that's it. And we can't wait to get into it. There's going to be more about that income coming up. But before we do, it's time for Money in the News.
First up, we get an article from Business Insider from Mary Maisonzal. I hope I'm getting that right.
Maisonzal.
This has to do with what's been all over the news lately. I've been seeing it constantly. A U.S. ban on Mexican avocados that could have a major impact on U.S. fast food chains and supermarkets and everywhere else where you go to buy an avocado. And what it really comes down to, and kind of dig into this issue, is that come to find out that the U.S. imports 80% of its avocados from one state in Mexico, which is a very significant dependence on for all you guacamole lovers out there on this one particular state. A U.S. inspector happened to be there. I think this was happening about 2 weeks ago or so. And he noticed that some of the inventory that they had there queued up to get imported up to the U.S. was sourced from another state. And as usual, cartels are involved, and we get some issues here. And as this inspector was looking to reject those avocados, he apparently got a phone call of a threatening nature, basically telling him that he'd be best off to continue to ship those avocados north. But being apparently extremely brave guy, he made the call up to the powers that be in the U.S. and, the conversations got rolling. And as of now, we are importing no avocados from Mexico. Even as of today, I checked back in on the story, and the $70 million worth of avocados set to rot in Mexico that will not be imported. And we've yet to really find a deal here to get this thing worked out.
Well, I like guacamole, so this is a problem.
It is. I go through a lot of avocados, and the author here reached out to a number of fast food chains and restaurant chains in general, seeing that the price of a whole avocado has already doubled in a lot of places around the country, and it's going to continue to go up. But it was interesting. They talked to Taco Bell, and Taco Bell was, it's just interesting. They have a different position on this in that they don't import avocados. They import guacamole, and there is no such limitation or issue having to do with that. So it's not every avocado product or everything based on avocado that's going to have an issue here or, go through this temporary price inflation. It's just the actual whole avocado.
I was not prepared to do a deep dive into guacamole today or take a bath in it or any of the above. But wow.
The thing that I thought was interesting was it's $3 billion of avocado, $3 billion a year in avocados from Mexico.
I probably spent half of that at Chipotle just on adding the avocado, so I can believe that. That number sounds about right.
Of course, the cartel has its hands in it, and just who would have thought that being an inspector from the U.S. on avocados would become a life-threatening situation? I
got to tell you, I'm actually shocked the guy stood up to it.
Well, it's even more shocking as we kind of digging into the cartel end of this, and not to belabor the point, but the avocado farmers down there have armed themselves. And they literally stand guard at the fields because the cartel is such an influence and an impact on their business that, you hear about these shootouts in Mexico, unfortunately, all the time. And you presume it's drug gangs shooting at each other, left, right, and center. But it's actually these avocado farmers defending the crop that are having these shootouts with Mexican cartels all the time.
You sure the crop is avocados?
Well, good point. Good point there.
I don't think that's the only thing they're growing down there. I'm sorry, but I tend to think if you're an armed avocado man, you're probably not a straight farmer. So
this sounds like a really good Netflix documentary coming out.
I know. I'm telling you, man. I don't want to be turning over any leaves here because I don't want to get any threatening phone calls about avocado farmers. But let's move on to the next one.
No, I'm still stuck in guacamole over here, guys.
Gosh. Too much. All right, next.
Wouldn't this tie into the chip shortage story? But I guess that's a different one, right?
Oh.
Ouch. That was a really bad one, Dan.
We were talking about income, right? And it not being part of our show. And then the next thing I saw here was gambling. I'm like, wait a second. How did we do an income show and incorporate gambling in the money in the news?
Well, it's if you really, really don't have the numbers, you're good to go. No. So, hey, listen, this is a little bit of a gamble, right? But in this Fox Business article by Lucas Manfred, this guy, Mattress Mac, loses $9.5 million on a Super Bowl bet. It's the largest single bet, right? It's the largest single bet ever placed. And so it's interesting because Mattress Max is kind of like the Bernie and Phil's of New England. Like where they buy the insurance and so forth to offset. You go in, you're going to buy a couch or a sofa or a bed, and if it's over a certain price, and in his scenario, if it was over $3,000, if the Bengals won, they got it for free.
It's going to be free,
right? So he had to place a bet to offset that, at $9.5 million. And what was interesting was he had his initial bet was $4.5 million, and he had to up it the week prior another $5 million.
Yeah.
He was selling the stuffing out of some mattresses.
Oh gosh,
We're rolling with the dad jokes today.
yeah, dad jokes galore. So yeah, $9.5 million. I mean, it's kind of interesting because I didn't know much about this, and Dan and I were talking about it, and it's just like Bernie and Phil's does insurance. So Dan,
So Bernie Phil's with Jordan. So it's one of those- I
Jordan.
think it's
Oh yeah,
Jordan's,
you're right. It's Jordan's. My bad. Sorry, Bernie.
Yeah. So they, it's like an annual right here, and they've been doing it for a while. It seems like it's been 10, 15 years they've been doing it.
And the thing is they did it that one year where the Red Sox won
Yeah.
the World. They did it on the World
2004.
Series. Yeah,
so it goes back to at least then. And lately they've been doing it on like a Red Sox pitching a no-hitter by August or something. I think that was last year. So they must have taken a few lumps along the way with the Red Sox winning, 4 or 5 World Series in the last 20 years. But, they did it. And I remember looking into this before, and they were doing it through an insurance company. They found some insurer or someplace to offset, whatever the risk was that they were taking on sales. But now with the, kind of opening up of online gambling and sports betting in general, maybe that's the way they go in the future. But this guy went right down to Caesars in Vegas and placed his bet.
It's pretty phenomenal. I mean, it's honestly a huge. I mean, thinking that somebody's doing that is just crazy. That we chat about it all. We were joking around about before the show. I think it's probably relevant to bring up. It's like, are you gambling by buying the couch that you may not have to pay for?
Yeah, there's definitely some gambling aspect to it, but
No, I'm just teasing.
yeah, in the
How many
end, you
people
just
are like
spending your
looking
money
at
for
their
the
credit
couch.
card and saying, "Oh no."
No, I think you have to pay for it first.
You do, and there's a reimbursement.
There's a reimbursement. Yeah. There's a reimbursement.
Okay.
So
Well, it makes a lot of Red Sox fans out of furniture buyers, I guess, right?
I know. I've considered it, but every time I've gone to Jordan's, I never found anything I liked. But
Yeah.
anyways. All right, Seth, you next up on this one.
Yeah, why not? Let's go for it. So retail sales rose 3.8%, and that was much better than the 2.1% the Dow Jones estimated. That's great news for us in our economy, right? And that was coming to us by CNBC Jeff Cox. Part of what's interesting around that is that we've just had some huge inflationary numbers coming through over the last year that, this is kind of an interesting thing that's counter to what was predicted in terms of our economy. And so a lot of what came through in that was, increases, and you're talking about Bernie and Phil's and Jordan's, and a lot of the increases over that period were actually through online purchases and furniture, home furnishings, which was an increase of 7.2%.
It's kind of loosely related, but the furniture story for myself this weekend. My wife and I went out. We tried to replace some. We have a bar height countertop, and we wanted to get some stools that would fit. So cats destroyed the other ones, but so we found a couple sets that we liked. Earliest delivery opportunity was going to be mid-July for everything that we saw that we liked, and the delivery charge was going to be somewhere around $300, which you can get anything delivered tomorrow for free. Is what I've been ingrained with since the pandemic started. So literally over the price of the delivery, I refused to pay. I was like, absolutely no way. I said, how about we get it delivered to the store and I'll come pick it up? And they told me no. I was like, well, you stock furniture here. Why don't you just send it to the store? I'll come get it. And anyway, no stools.
You could go whittle one, Dan.
I would before I pay for that. I will absolutely do that.
Whittle one until July. You should be covered. You could wait until
spring ball shows up, and maybe there's some bets you could place and hedge the cost of the
I just gotta know where to sit when I'm watching the games.
I really got to figure out this whole purchase thing. How do you win at this game of buying furniture?
Oh, man. So retail sales rose 13%, pushed higher by 33.4% surge in gasoline station sales and 21.9% burst in clothing store sales year over year. I think the thing is and we're going to talk about this next week, we're going to talk about inflation. We're going to dive deep into some of the history, some of the issues around it today, and how to combat that moving forward, how to invest around that, how to deal with that. But it's a conversation at everyone's table. I mean, I know, my wife and I were talking about school, location of school, travel, work travel. I mean, all the different pieces because, looking at all the travel and everything involved, like gasoline's so expensive and trying to mitigate that and I mean, we're not in the, 1970s of, the gasoline surge, but with things going on in Ukraine and everything else, we may be at the middle or the beginning of a cost surge in gasoline because Russia is one of the largest importers or exporters of oil, and that's a big problem for us because the world is thinking that sanctions might come on Russia, and that would be a big issue for them because the only way to make them hurt is to not buy their oil. That's really that and their coal, right? So that's a big issue for us worldwide, and OPEC has not been friendly about opening up the pipelines that much. So.
Yeah, no, that could definitely create a serious supply issue, which would be hard to overcome. I mean, nobody's prepared to match that or replace that production, and certainly not in an immediate fashion. So, should that geopolitical issue kind of come to a head and war break out, we're going to see prices spike.
Yeah, we've been ever since the crash, right? Basically, the crash of 2020 and the pandemic beginning. As soon as all that energy stuff started crashing, we became long energy for a very long time. There's a lot of issues around it. We talked about the different conversations that Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan had about potentially seeing $200 a barrel oil for different reasons. They were concerned about the fact that, if we turned off too much oil in the storage crisis that existed, that, ultimately we would have too much turned off to turn on fast enough if the whole world started right back up at full speed again. But now we're looking at a whole different level of a crisis. And I just think there's just so much headwind, in the whole oil conversation that like the struggle around that is only going to push oil higher for times to come. And I think with, we've talked about EV and going green and just the development of all that green energy is going to require so much more oil beyond any usage scenario we've ever used as a country. I don't think people understand that just the demand of oil to build all that green energy stuff is going to, 5, 6, maybe 10 times the amount of oil usage per year in the United States. So there's a demand that's coming that I think is not even quantified yet and more to come. So
maybe they'll revisit that oil pipeline that got vetoed out with the current administration.
Not as long as Buffett owns the rail cars, moving the oil back and forth between Canada and the U.S.
Yeah, let's not become self-sustaining and tap into one of our largest natural resources to be able to take care of ourselves. Let's bypass that idea and move on to another one. Thanks, Putin. We appreciate you there, buddy. Oh my gosh, I got to keep going here, you guys. We've got more and more information here for you today as we're going to be diving into, that tax-free income that everybody out there is talking about. I'm sure you've been around the water cooler lately and having that conversation, but we're going to get into it here for you on building your pension and creating that tax-free income for yourselves. It's going to be a ton of great information for you. And we can't wait to get into it. We'll be right back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com.
Ben, how often do we have somebody come into the office and they don't have a financial plan? And how critical is it for us to put the pieces together and make sure that their future, their retirement, is a successful experience? We talk about it all the time here at Money on Tap. If that's you, give us a call at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Whether you have 100,000, 500,000, 5 million. Look, folks, we have the right planner for you. Whether it's Ben or myself, Seth Krussman, we're here for you to get the plan together and make sure that next step is right.
Now back to Money on Tap with Ben, Seth, and Dan.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. You guys, we are talking about that wonderful of amazing and more wonderful things, which is tax-free income. And it feels so good to say that. Just kind of, rolls off the tongue. But it can be so hard in today's tax structure and, gosh, some of the limitations on different incomes and how things work in the tax structures to try to create your own pension that is tax-free. And it's one of the places that I think us as planners with Brayshaw Financial Group do spend a fair amount of our time really focused in trying to harness the capacity of what this industry has available for you towards your retirement and creating not only a pension, but that tax-free pension. We're excited to talk about this topic today. And just because, well, not just because, it's a little bit more thoughtful than that. It is such a huge topic for us that we want to make sure that if you are one of our 10 listeners that at the end of the show either emails us or calls us with a code, we have a gift for you. Free gift to you. A lot of free going on today, but this is a free gift for you. If you're one of the 10 listeners that reaches out to us with the code that we'll give you at the end of the show, we'll give you a free gift. And I cannot wait to actually get into the rest of this show with you guys. What do you say, Ben?
Yeah, I think when it comes to the idea of a pension, I mean, really just retirement's all about income. That's what we chatted about earlier. And when people don't really understand how much income they have versus their expenses, that is the issue. I mean, everyone has assets, but how do you convert it into a usable form that everyone can have and make available to them at the right time and the right amount to accomplish that without having, fearful decisions or uncertainty around that, or what did the market do today and should I buy or should I sell? All those kind of market pieces create a lot of issues. Now, we've talked about all of those things. We talked about, in the No Pension, No Problem series, we talked about dividend portfolios. We've talked about, goodness gracious, we talked about annuities. We talked about all the different facets of income features and how people withdraw from. We talked about the idea that people, when they hit retirement, go from these aggressive, more aggressive 401k plans to less aggressive, securities-based investments. We talked about bonds, kind of the failure of the bond market in the retirement years right now. And so people are trying to look for other scenarios, but then we have this kind of tertiary issue that is literally staring everyone in the face, and no one's really talking about it in the way of retirement planning. And that's the impact of what taxes is going to look like over the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. For a lot of people, it's not just the retirement planning and income that they're looking at. They're looking at estate planning. They're looking at the whole gamut. People walk through the door and they say, hey, I want to retire. And when I'm done, this is what I want everything to look like. This is how much I want to pass on to my kids. And, well, we could pass this much, or maybe we could pass this much, and it's, kind of the idea of how do we maximize the entire start to finish story. And that's what we do. That's why people contact us. The piece that I see here, guys, that I'd really like to dive into and get your opinions on and kind of work through is the concept around the taxes and the vulnerability we face, taxes of what today's rates are and versus what tomorrow's or 20 years from now is going to look like.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's clear to see, and it's something we've discussed many times, that the taxes are just bound to go up. I mean, there's no way you can print the kind of money that we have lately to get out of this pandemic issue and not face an increase in taxes down the road. So I think that's just got to be built into any kind of plan that you're working on for yourselves or with anybody you're seeking advice from. It's probably where the conversation starts, right? Is, we can produce X amount of income, but ultimately how much of that is take home for you? How much of that is going to be forked over to Uncle Sam? So the notion of being able to build a tax-free income story is quite exciting. I mean, it's a great opportunity. And for the most part, and one of the things we talked about in the pension program series was the Roth IRA, right? So you can set aside money today. It's got some restrictions and some rules, dictated by the IRS. But the benefit to it is that at some point in the future, in your retirement years, when you begin to withdraw that money, everything you put into and whatever it's grown to, all that comes back to you tax-free. Now, the issue there, though, is that not everybody is eligible to make a contribution to a Roth. And so we do have a solution here that we're going to get into today, and it's kind of the topic of the day, is a program that there are no such limitations on. Anybody can open one of these up. The condition here, or the one exemption to that, is you got to be reasonably healthy to start, right? Because this program is based in life insurance.
And I think that's the thing that, catches everybody, kind of like life insurance. Why would we be talking about life insurance and income? I mean, they just seem like they're just not related at all. And that's the new news that's out there. That's what's the development story in the world of retirement planning that has really taken off. A lot of people are so fearful where taxes are going. And people say, well, they're really high, and I'm not sure how much higher they could go. And I have to actually pull up, and I would encourage all of our listeners to pull up the tax rates, the marginal tax rate history card. I mean, you can go to Google, type in, historical, federal tax rates, and click on images, and you'll see 1,000 charts pop up. And you'll see that in the 1940s and 50s, the tax rates were over 90% for the highest tax bracket. 90%. Like, to explain that clearly, like if you're in a 20% tax bracket today, you get to keep 80 cents of every dollar. Back then, you only got to keep 8 cents of every dollar at a 92% bracket. I mean, that's horrendous. But I mean, when people think about the disparity difference, we forget how high taxes, well, for us, we never even experienced it, but we forget historically how high tax rates were.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for taking a look at the history of what has happened and where we're at in the current environment to really get the perspective of where things are possibly going to head, right? Because we've got some real needs, and the pocket that the Fed, or not the Fed, but the government really has available to try to pursue happens to be us.
Yeah.
That's where they can go. And, maybe there's the other situations that they've got available, which are the bonds and in printing money and in, whatever else they can gather. And that's kind of been where things have been, is just this accumulation of debt, but the debt is just continuing to increase. So what are we going to do? Right. And that's the one that seems to be, what makes sense, but we just haven't really come to that place where they've been realistic about that, I think.
Yeah, no, I think you're right there. And I think, as we kind of dive into this and the concept, the kind of what sounds like an oxymoron of like life insurance and income, how does that work? I'm just going to break into this right here and just start talking about it. Is the idea that, life insurance is not the idea of taking money out of life insurance in retirement is not a new one. That's not something that's brand new. That's not something that's just kind of, cresting out of the marketplace. What we're actually talking about is there's a number of life insurance companies that have actually engaged in guaranteed lifetime income or some form of it during a retirement period that are taking the cash, the kind of the vehicle that people put money into. And, what's really nice about it is that you can buy life insurance. And actually, all three of us own this. So I think we're speaking from probably a biased perspective on some level. But the idea that you put cash into a life insurance policy, but what's unique is you actually buy almost as little life insurance as you possibly can based on how much income or how much money you want to put away to create the income you want to create. So the idea is this, which is totally opposite to every life insurance salesman illustration. I think of that movie Groundhog Day and Ned Ryerson and all of that. Like, how much life insurance can you sell? Like, the idea is to buy as little life insurance inside this tax loophole that allows you to put cash away and to bury it and to allow it to grow just like a Roth IRA would grow, which is tax deferred. And when the money comes out in income, when you're ready for retirement, it's tax-free.
Yeah, I think there's one thing to say there is that, there's a couple different reasons why you would buy insurance. And the ones most commonly thought of is to, offset your liabilities, right? You have a mortgage on a house. You want to make sure the kids go to school. You owe payments on a car. So you want to be properly insured to the right level there. And we generally recommend term insurance to do that, right? So that's just low cost, cover your debts, make sure if something happens, your family's cared for. And then there's the opposite end of the spectrum is the estate planning, saying, well, I have a very specific design of what I want to have be left behind. There's a business or some land I want to protect. And again, that total death benefit dollar is, very specifically tied into that plan. This is kind of a middle ground approach, right? This is insurance for the purpose of creating a lifetime income at some point or some mode of retirement income down the road, whether it's a lifetime over a fixed period. So I think kind of tying into Ben's point is, we want to limit the weight or the expense of the actual insurance on every dollar spent so that more of that dollar is getting invested for down the road.
And I think I really want to jump in here with, Seth, Dan, I'm thinking about Dave Ramsey, right?
Gosh, you took it.
Go ahead, Seth. Yeah,
right out of my mouth. I was like, it sounds like you're saying, and by term, invest the difference, right? And were we doing that before Dave, or was that his idea? I forget.
Well, I mean, the thing is that Dave Ramsey. I know that a lot of people are against cash accumulating life insurance, and we're not debating the value of one life insurance over the other. I think, Dan, you make the point of we just need to insure the needs of our family and kids, and I have a lot of term insurance to do that. I've got 4 kids, and that's a lot to worry about. And so the way I cover that is a simple term policy and so forth. But I have this other thing over here that does have a life insurance feature. It is a cash accumulation vehicle. But what people don't realize is that, the cost of the insurance is kind of a backwards pull. That is the headwind you're facing in your investment side. But what you don't have to overcome is that huge tax burden that's just overwhelmingly facing you in the future. And I can tell you, just from personal experience and working with clients and so forth, when you're actually comparing an IRA distribution that you're going to have to pay taxes on sometime in the future versus a non-taxable distribution in the future, even with equal tax rates, you usually have to put less money away in the insurance side based on reasonable rates of return versus the IRA side because the tax burden is so weighted against you.
And that's on the assumption of where taxes stand now, right? And the future could even be higher.
And then I think that's where we all believe they're going to go, and that only makes the scenario better.
So you've talked about the pure insurance version of insurance, which is, we're going to buy insurance to cover, this item right here. And, we buy it for pure insurance for car, right? We don't have automobile insurance that has another side of it here that has a cash accumulation vehicle on it, right? That's just the very purest form of insurance that we can buy. And we do that. And what the concept is there is what you were talking about, Ben, is really putting into place that piece first and addressing that need first. But then there's another need over here. And now how many different things under the umbrella of life insurance can be addressed? And it's really it's an incredible vehicle that is within the tax code that allows different things to kind of pass through and be accomplished through it. I mean, there's the life insurance, there's the long-term care insurance, what are all of the insurance or insurabilities under the life insurance umbrella?
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. I mean, life insurance is not what it used to be. I think when we talk about kind of the pros of this life insurance, facet option of like creating your own pension, the pension plus idea, it's like I've referred to it as a Swiss Army knife. When people talk about life insurance, it's not sexy. I mean, it's like, oh, this is life insurance. But honestly, some of the most opportunistic areas are the least, it's not the latest, greatest stock idea, and this thing's going to be crazy, and you just want to talk about it. People like the excitement of stuff in the financial world, and life insurance is not exciting. But when you are retired and you're taking out a large income that's 100% tax-free, trust me, that's exciting. That's very exciting. And we get excited about that stuff. But these programs come with other features. They might have, on top of the income feature, they might have a long-term care feature separate from the life insurance. They might have a critical or chronic illness feature. And so we call it the Pension Plus, because of the idea that you can create your own pension, and God forbid something happens, whether it's a death benefit scenario, maybe a long-term care event, a heart attack, a stroke, a non-terminal cancer, you might really be able to combat a long-term issue that could take your family and everything else into a really good place, despite the tragedy that you might be dealing with.
Well said. We are talking about the Pension Plus program with the intention here of creating your own pension. How do you do that? Is there one that you can create that's tax-free as well? Yeah, there possibly is. And that's what we're talking about on Money on Tap today. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. And here's a bit of a teaser for you folks. The first word that you want to write down to get your free gift for the first 10 callers or emails that come through is tax. That's your first word, folks, is tax. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more of our Pension Plus program. You're listening to Money on Tap.
For a number of our listeners, they have a lot of questions, and you might be one of them. Today, we're just offering what we call Zoominars, webinars over Zoom meeting rooms, where we have top experts, Social Security, estate planning, and financial planning experts for you to speak with, do a private consultation that way today. We're also having webinar-based Zoominars where we're going to have multiple groups where you can be part of that and enjoy that as well. Give us a call at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com to schedule your Zoominar.
Now back to Money on Tap with Ben, Seth, and Dan.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Today, folks, we are talking about Pension Plus, building your own pension, and then what, right? But there's another way to do this that can be tax-free and have actually several other kind of benefits tucked inside of that, outside of the pension or the tax-free pension. And how we're doing that today is we're doing it inside of an insurance, a couple of different insurance vehicles. And we call them vehicles because we all like cars and we like to drive. And it's, what gets us from A to B to Z or whatever gets us through the retirement. But income ultimately is what's driving the show today and keeping us on track here. Ben, you want to talk a little bit about, how does this work? Like, what is the lever behind the system that creates the tax-free? Or actually, I think that was Dan. Dan, you got that going on, don't you?
Yeah, I can definitely cover that. So what goes on is, first thing, let's talk about how the money grows, okay? So we've talked about how every dollar that gets put in here, there's a certain portion of that that's dedicated to covering the expenses of the actual life insurance. So let's just say 75 cents is going to the investment side of the account and 25 cents is covering your costs. That 75 cents is going to grow based upon the performance of a major index, usually the S&P 500, although we've got a couple different options there. So, Ben mentioned kind of the sizzle, the stock sale, and people getting excited about market upside. This product does have some of that, but there's protections built into it. So if the market goes down, that 75 cents that you've invested is going to be exposed to none of the losses. Or if the market goes up, there'll be a cap. And generally speaking, there's a lot of variance in the market, but somewhere between 8 and 11% is going to be your upside cap. So the cash value is what we're speaking to here. It's going to grow based upon what happens in the market with some restrictions, but also with a lot of downside protection. So you don't need to worry about the market itself kind of blowing up this plan. That's not going to happen.
I think it's important too for people who don't understand, I'm sure there's lots of people that don't understand caps. I think the easiest way to explain this is that, depending on what the market does, you're either going to do 0 for the year because the market was horribly negative, or you're going to make, some amount of money between 0 and 8 or 10 or 11% or whatever the cap is. And the cap is the most you can make in a year. And I think that's relieving to a lot of people because it's not you get some participation in the kind of index based projected investment returns. So they don't actually invest your money in the index; they're investing it in all sorts of different things. But they give you an equivalent return based on what the index did, and they're using other features. They're hedging and buying option contracts and all different things to offset their risk. And, that's really kind of like getting into the nuts and bolts of it. But the idea that, you don't have to worry about this like your stock portfolio or your other investment portfolio is really a nice feature to have on top of your general investment. Like, hey, I've got this program out there. We talk about pensions. And for a lot of people listening, they might not even know what a pension is other than, Grandpa had one. But it's all about income, folks. It's income, income, income. It's about creating income and creating lifetime income and getting people sorted in a way that they know that they're fairly secure in what they have. And to do that is you're going to have some levels of guaranteed income in retirement that you're going to want to have, like you're going to have your Social Security and you might have some annuities. But then you can add life insurance as another level. And that life insurance being tax-free income changes the whole gamut.
And there's a couple things about that tax-free component of it that are important as it relates to the other things you just mentioned, and it's worth talking about in that your IRAs, your 401ks, the other vehicles, the pensions, the more traditional vehicles out there that provide income, they all interact with each other. And there's a totality of the income you receive that's going to determine your tax bracket, and that can affect ultimately what you get to keep from your Social Security, as an example. This does not. Okay, the income that comes off of the life insurance policy will have zero effect on that. And as well, there's the notion of RMD. Some people, acquire enough assets and have enough income set up that when it does come time to retire, they don't actually need their IRAs, but they're required to draw them down using RMDs, required minimum distributions, which just adds to the tax picture and impacts the Social Security. There's no RMDs required from life insurance. So there's some flexibility and additional components of this tax-free story that are beyond the simple idea of, well, I don't need to pay income tax on this check I received today.
Yeah. There's some other things that I'm reminded of, some of these concepts that have been developed, and over time they've been kind of distributed into the general public under different kind of sales approaches, right? There's I'm trying to remember back when this is right around 2003 and 2004 that people were using a VUL, which actually is a way that insurance monies under the umbrella of insurance can actually be incorporated into market investments, kind of like mutual funds and these other things that they will use inside of those VULs. And
just to clarify, Seth, because you said variable life.
Right.
I was thinking about like the VULs. That's a variable life, so you have that full risk of the stock market. You could lose 30-40% if the stock market goes down. Go ahead.
Right. And I'm trying to build a comparison here, folks, because sometimes the concepts that we're talking about might have some familiarity to you, or you might have some similarities to some of these ideas in the past. And this is still something that's around. People sell variable universal life insurance still. But it's such a high risk place for people to try to accomplish this goal. But that's what they had in the past. That's what they had available is an insurance product that had market participation. And that's not what you're talking about with this. When we're talking about an index in a strategy using an index, that's one of the things that can be really hard to kind of differentiate in people's minds, I think, is this in the market? And it's like you said before, Ben, it's not in the market, but it's using an instrument kind of in relationship to the market to ultimately accomplish some growth or some potential gains alongside of the market. And that can be really hard to differentiate sometimes. But
kind of going back to that other concept that was, super high risk, that variable universal life idea. I remember this is going, back in the day, people were really high on this idea of using a very like an adjustable rate mortgage and taking the difference between a 30-year fixed payment and that adjustable rate mortgage and kind of offsetting and pushing into some of these other programs, the difference of those monies and those savings that they might have in an adjustable rate mortgage. A concept that I have not heard anybody talking about in so long, probably because 30-year fixed rates have been as low as they've ever been before. But I kind of want to talk about those things because these are probably conversations that have come up in the past, or maybe you're having with people that have some experience in trying to do some different things in the insurance world or in their own financial planning world, and maybe they've had some experiences that have been, for some people, really hard or really even catastrophic because they were thinking an insurance program didn't have, because of the word insurance in it, didn't have vehicles inside of the insurance that couldn't be affected by the market. And that's just not the story with what a variable universal life product can look like. It can very much be dependent on the market and the fluctuations of the market. And one of the things I do like in consideration here is that this indexed universal life program, it doesn't have that same fluctuation that the market does.
Yeah, I think it's nice because you're either making money or you just didn't make money. It's simple, it's easy, and you get a nice nominal, decent rate of return historically on almost every average program we've seen. It's nothing. You're not going to be bragging about it, but when you start taking out your income and it's guaranteed for life and it's tax free, you're going to be so thankful you did it. That's why each one of us have it. I have one on myself and my wife. It's a great opportunity to build, a substantial amount of income and not have to worry about the long-term side effects of what the taxes are going to be. It's one thing, we have all these forces against us as we're trying to look at retirement. We're facing taxes. We're facing, do we have enough money? How much income do we have? What are expenses going to look like with inflation? It's like if we can just get one of those things off the table, it makes the fight a little smaller, right? We got 5 or 6 things we're fighting. We're fighting inflation every day. We're fighting the demand for this need or that need. And it's like, if I could just take some of the tax concerns off the table, that's a big deal. The other thing is, Dan, and you were mentioning the tax scenario. I know we're getting here on the next break here, but the idea that when you're taking income out, what people don't realize is there's this other third tax benefit that creating tax-free pension creates. It means you have to take less money out of your 401k, less money out of your IRA, which means those dollars are going to be taxed at lower rates, which you only could do is if you had tax-free income. So you don't really get the credit, but you do get the credit. It doesn't show that return and that tertiary opportunity to reduce the amount of money you take out of your IRAs to keep that at that lower tax bracket income level.
And keep that money in the market, too.
And keep the rest of that money in the market. Exactly. Go ahead, Seth.
You guys, it is that time again. I have another key for you. The next word that you want to write down is free. I'll spell it for you. It's F-R-E-E. I think it's still spelled the same. Anyways, we've gotten to free in the code for you to unlock your free gift. That free gift is a book for you, and it's going to be on tax-free retirement. And there's a couple of chapters in there that we want to make sure that we highlight for you. It's for entrepreneurs or business owners, as well as doctors, specifically to your tax scenarios that you need to be paying attention to, and why this tax-free pension idea is so critical for you to be understanding and working towards as well, or working within. Folks, we're going to take a break. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Those are where you want to call and email. The first 10 at the end of the show that get to us will get their book on tax-free retirement. And thank you so much for listening to Money on Tap. We'll be right back with more of the Pension Plus program.
If you're listening today and, your questions are outside the box of estate planning or financial planning or any number of the pieces that we kind of traditionally talk about, don't forget that Brayshaw Financial offers auto, home, and business insurance. And we have an entire department that handles all of that for you. Give us a call at 855-226-8551 and be happy to take care of those needs for you. Or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com.
Now back to Money on Tap with Ben, Seth, and Dan.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Folks, I have the final word for you. It is 22. Tax-free 22 is the code you need to get your copy of the Tax-Free Retirement Story for the first 10 callers or emailers. There's a couple of chapters there specific to doctors and business owners that you want to know about how to build your Pension Plus program. And there's a couple of other things in there as well that we were just talking about, like there's the Be Your Own Bank. And this is kind of some of these terminologies have been created and used over time to just illustrate how powerful these programs are to allow you flexibility to do different things that you want to do, creating that tax-free pension, but also having the flexibility to take out loans on these policies to do different stuff that you want to do. I mean, sometimes, having a cash on hand is really important for doing different projects or building different ideas out in your own world and your own finances.
Yeah, I think the versatility of the insurance vehicle, and especially when you buy the right one, and I do like the IUL. That may not be the right one for you, the Index Universal Life program where you can mitigate your loss and kind of partake in the market return perspective. I think that's good. In building cash, but some of the concerns people have are, the cost of insurance. We talked a little bit about that and how if you're taking the tax-free income, the cost is easily mitigated by the fact of the tax savings by far, and that you're trying to buy as little life insurance as you possibly can to pay as little cost for the insurance because you're buying less insurance, right? A lot of people get concerned about surrender charges and the cost of getting out of insurance and how they do that. And I think, Seth, you mentioned Be Your Own Bank. I would say that before you're just looking to, maybe if you're looking to get out of insurance, maybe it's not that you're looking to do, but you just need access to cash. And when you're funneling cash into these vehicles, you can borrow that money out. And you actually end up paying yourself back the interest. So you're still participating in returns in the market. You can potentially offset that. In a big word we call arbitrage. So, but there's a lot of complex scenarios that you can do in this. But the reality is that the versatility doesn't necessarily come. It's already built into a lot of these insurance products. The problem is that most of the people that sell them don't understand all the versatilities. So they become difficult things to manage because they've got lots of different things going on. But if you work with somebody and they have a good handle on how these things work, and I think it's almost limitless in the perspective of the investment world, insurance world, of what you can potentially do with these things in creating retirement income and covering risk.
Yeah, particularly for the business owner. I mean, you really got to take a look at this because generally speaking, as a sole practitioner, you're not going to have a 401k. You're not going to have some of the traditional setups that have not only the income potential but the loan source potential. And you might need a short-term cash infusion in a business, especially these days. And having a policy like this fully funded would be a great opportunity.
And I think you make a good point about business owners need banking assets. And an insurance policy with cash in it is one really good banking asset.
You could loan from it or you can loan against it.
Yeah, so true.
Now, having a vehicle that you can continue to accumulate simultaneous withdraw from, wow, that's incredible. Folks, you've been listening to the Pension Plus program here at Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. And remember, tax-free 22, that's the code for you to give a call or email us. And the first 10 that get a hold of us will get their tax-free retirement story book. Again, highlighting a couple of chapters in there. Let us know if you happen to be an entrepreneur, business owner, or a doctor. We'll make sure that those are pointed out so that you can go straight to that chapter and start reading up on what this program or what these programs can look like for you. It's all about that tax-free retirement that tax-free pension. Folks, thanks so much for joining us for today. We'll look forward to talking to you next week.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of this radio station and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. No strategy, product, material, or tool mentioned can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information, products, materials, or tools mentioned should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. This show may be subsidized in whole or in part by a product sponsor or issuer. Securities and advisory services offered through SagePoint Financial Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC, and a registered investment advisor. All other services offered through Brayshaw Financial Group LLC are independent of SagePoint Financial. SagePoint Financial and Brayshaw Financial Group do not provide tax or legal advice. Main office is located at 116 South River Road, Bedford, New Hampshire, 03110, and can be reached at toll-free 855-226-8551.